First of all, welcome you all, and thanks for waiting. And I hope all of you, your family, your colleagues, everyone is safe. And in the going future also, I wish you all the very best. So today, the topic of discussion is in front of you, but let me tell you, there will be some three or four very interesting takeaways, like always, especially on the FX front. And also, my dear Mohit, my dear friend Mohit would cover something very interesting on the corporate treasury investment side, which all of you should take note, which will be the latter half of the presentation, uh, about because in the low interest rate environment, it's very important to understand what are the options for a corporate treasury, right? So moving forward, and I would appreciate if all of you guys, you know, participate in this presentation because we will have some interesting polls, your suggestions, and your participation is extremely important to all of us. So let's make it extremely interactive so that all of us can know what all of us are thinking, right? So initially, we'll discuss a little bit about the structural weakness or the cyclical weakness of the US dollar, some quantitative approach of IFA, which is proprietary in nature, what an exporter importer should do, and finally, what should you do in this low interest rate scenario. So let me ask you that what do you feel is the major reason for dollar weakness? So what we can see is most of the people felt that is it because of the fiscal and the monetary policy expansion, and a lot of people felt that low real interest rates, bang on. I think these two are the most important reason why which we are seeing the US dollar getting weak. Let's move forward. Never ever in the history we have seen this kind of a fiscal and monetary policy expansion. Look at the number. US debt to GDP ratio is like 135%. 100% was supposed to be the line in the sand. But now these guys are just printing as if there's no tomorrow. What will happen to the next generation? Nobody knows. How the next generation is going to pay back? Nobody knows. And they're just running on this MMT theory where if the government can collect taxes and pay interest, they can keep printing. Above all, look at the Fed. After financial crisis, it was at $1 trillion. They bought treasuries. Then it was $2 trillion by the time it ended. During this period before COVID, they had $4 trillion and now $8 trillion. And maybe I'll not be surprised in the next 2 years, probably they'll bring it to another 2, 3, $4 trillion. So where are we heading? And the world is asking this question. And that's one reason why the US dollar is getting weak. Well, let me show you another way. We have had crises, World War I, II, gold standard, Great Recession. Look at the way the graph is. Look at the slope of the graph. Now, even if you adjust for inflation, this is exponential. Never ever seen before. Another way of looking at it, US at the top, the rest of the countries follow the US. And now it's now become a game of relativity. If you are printing and we are not printing, then how do we come out of it? That's what has been happening. The problem is that it's okay to give print money because you are in a recession, you need to come out of it. But the way it has been printed, money has gone in the hands of the consumer in their bank accounts by stimulus checks. Now for COVID vaccination, they are giving free beers. I don't know what. So the way the money has gone into the US economy, and because in the last 10 years, the US was not building capacities in-house. So the money that is getting from the government, they are simply buying the goods from the rest of the world. And since you are buying the goods from the rest of the world, you are increasing the current account deficit. And just look at the number, is 3.5%. How much is India's current account deficit? I think close to 0.5%. And still we say that we are running a deficit. 3.5 to 3% of current account deficit in case of US. And the way it has been moving, they have not really built up manufacturing capacity. Is it going to come down? Well, we don't know. Maybe after September, October, when the stimulus checks gets reduced or if they stop it, then possibly we could see some dip. But as of now, current account deficit is straight up. This report we got access to some time back, and it's a very, very interesting report by Bank of America. It shows that China has been spending more money relatively than US. They're in a different game altogether. It's no longer the old China, which used to depreciate their currencies, export to the rest of the world, get the money, invest the money in the US dollar or US treasuries, and now maybe they're playing a different game. What if they're comfortable with a stronger yuan? What does it impact on the rupee? What if they don't want to play this game altogether? They want to export high quality goods because the wage in China has also increased. But interestingly, what will not change is the supply chains. And the supply chains take a long time to build. Do you agree with me? Say yes, yes, yes. Now, one very interesting takeaway. People are talking about inflation, inflation, inflation. We are looking at the CPI number. We are looking at the core number. But interestingly, what we are currently seeing is in the last 50 years, inflation almost, the unemployment number almost bottomed just before COVID. It was at the best at around 3.5%. At that point of time, US was struggling to increase the inflation above 2%. So what happened now? Now the inflation is around, the recent number came out 5%. So even if the unemployment number is 6%, so what is happening? So we feel that the inflation is because supply side constraints, everything, commodity price increases, logistics issues, people not coming to work, etc., etc. And even Fed is confused, and that's the reason they're saying average inflation targeting means they are not going to increase interest rates or taper before they want to see the inflation for some more time, right? And hopefully, going forward, this converts into a good inflation where the corporates' debts get deflated. And it's not a bad inflation, otherwise, which is really bad for the economy. So we feel that possibly it could be a little bit bad inflation for now, which ultimately will improve in the future. And hopefully in the 3-4 months, we should see this course correction happening. Now, what very interesting point, we all are investors, right? We all want to get some yield after inflation adjustment, right? In India, we have an inflation 4-5%. If the interest rates are down, what happens? We don't get positive yield, right? Can the yields be negative? Can the real rates be negative? The real rates can definitely be negative, as we can see. In case of India also, right now we are seeing that the interest rates is close to how much? 1 year interest rates? 1 year interest rates is how much? Like 5, right? Right, Abhijit, 5. What's the inflation? 5.5, right? So is it a negative yield? Yes. In India also we have a negative yield. Look at what's happening in the US. In the US, we are typically seeing the inflation going up and the yields coming down. Why? Well, the inflation is possibly a bad inflation right now. And the yields are continuously coming down because time and again, the market is feeling that Fed is not going to do any tapering on or hike rates. You know what the real yield in US is? Any thoughts? What the real yield in US is? You're right. It's close to minus 3%. So you tell me now, if the real yield in the US is minus 3%, and who was the most dovish central bank? Any thoughts? Some time back, who was the most dovish central bank? It was the US, it was Europe, it was UK. Who was the most dovish? Was it Europe? UK, BOJ? Lately, it was the Europe. They had negative interest rates, and time and again, people were thinking the rates in the Europe would be negative, and there were discussions that in Japan and in Europe, when you put money, you don't get interest; you have to pay interest. Now, currently, if you see, the real interest rates was minus 3% in the US, and in the case of 10-year also, if you see the zero line, whenever the interest rates have gone below that, negative real interest rates have gone below, the dollar has become weak. And that's exactly what's happening right now, because the purchasing power is actually reducing, by keeping money in the US dollar by around 3%. Which is the most important factor which determines currency movement? Please put in your points. Right. Keep pulling. We'll take 10, 15 seconds more. Look at this. If you actually see this chart, on the brown line, we have the euro dollar. The Europe is the green line. Then we have the orange line, which is the US 2-year yield. So whenever we have seen that, if you see the last bar, the US 2-year real rates have come below the Germany real rates, and that's exactly when the US dollar has started weakening. And over here, as soon as we saw the US 2-year rate started moving up against Germany, we started seeing a crash in the euro. And over here, we started seeing the rise in the euro. So one very interesting takeaway that I would like to give is, whenever you are confused about foreign exchange markets, just seek real rates. And after a very long period of time, when these real rates turn for a longer period of time again, then you see a trend coming. And that's exactly what we are trying to show from the chart. So whenever you are confused, just track the real rates adjusted for inflation, and you will get an idea about where the money is going and what currency is going to get strong. And for us, we have tried it. It works most of the time. Also, in case of US, if you see, the share of foreign exchange reserves have been falling down. Time and again, you have been hearing that countries are talking about reduction. So from 70%, it has come all the way to 59%. So what's happening with the US dollar? Well, we saw coordinated monetary and fiscal policy expansion never ever seen in history. Because you are giving so much of money to people, people are importing a lot, they're spending a hell lot of it. And then you are having a huge current account deficit, also because of huge pent-up demand. This leads to a higher inflation, leads to a low real rates, and then which comes to a weak dollar. And because of weak dollar, it again increases the inflation, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's what is happening. So either the inflation needs to come down, or either the interest rates needs to go up, the nominal yield, and then only the real rates will change. Lately also, a lot of people keep asking us what's happening to the US dollar. There is a digital currency which is coming with the China. What's going to happen? Is US dollar going to be out of fashion? Russia just told that in the oil fund, we are going to have more euros and yuan, and we are going to reduce our exposure to US dollar. So of course, these discussions are happening, and that's one reason why people are also looking at other alternatives. But the question is, Is US dollar going to be out? And if yes, till when? Well, nobody knows. But one thing is for sure, that two or three things which can happen right now, which can change the trend of the US dollar. And one and the most important thing the world is looking at, a lot of economists are talking that possibly we are behind the curve. I mean, the US is behind the curve. Maybe they have to increase interest rates because inflation has gone up. If something like that happens, obviously the US dollar is going to get strong. So you need to keep that into account, that if the nominal yield starts going above 2%, if they starts giving some hint of tapering, even in the next meeting or sometime later, possibly this could happen. And also, if the minimum tax bill could get passed, possibly we could get some more US dollar back to America. That's another thing which could happen. So the question that one need to ask, whether this is structural weakness of US dollar is going to continue for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, or whether it's cyclical. Maybe for next 2 years when the US is printing more and more money and they're not talking about rates, till then it's going to continue. Well, nobody has a magic wand. I don't have a definite answer. One thing is for sure, China is coming up big time. We just saw. US is losing its importance. But having said that, before discounting the US, you should understand that 88% of the world trade still happens in the US dollar. 59% of foreign exchange reserve is still the US dollar. Most liquid bond and capital markets in the world, law and order, stable democracy. Such kind of an environment is not in a place like China or say Europe right now. So it's very difficult to say that US dollar is going to go out of fashion. So the question is that because of all these things, what's happening outside, dollar rupee is having a different game altogether. And I'm sure a lot of people of sitting over here are exporters and importers, and they would like to know what's happening in the dollar rupee, and also in terms of foreign currency loans, what you need to do. So lately, what has been happening in the US dollar? Everybody's been asking questions that 80 billion plus we got FDI in the last 12 months. We got $36 billion worth of money in FII. Rupee should have ideally been at 67, 68. Do you agree with me? Should it be at 72, 75 or 67 right now because of the flows? Just give a number. Oh, 65. Abhijit says 65. So everybody feels that rupee should have been very, very strong. It should not have been at 72, 73 levels. So what's happening because of which the rupee is holding on? So what's happening is that, there has been a flux of money which is coming from outside. It will be companies raising money, FII money coming in, FDI money coming in, series of IPOs, best time to raise money. I mean, 5 or 6 clients of ours have raised IPOs in the last few months. Now what's happening? No, RBI cannot let the rupee keep appreciating. So what they are doing is they are buying the US dollar and protecting it from the US rupee appreciation. And they have an option to give the liquidity in the system. But liquidity is already so much. Close to around 6.5 lakh crores is liquidity. If it gives so much of liquidity, the inflation is going to shoot up. So what they are doing is they are buying the dollars and pushing those dollars in the forward market and saying, okay, nothing doing. We are not giving money in the system. We are simply pushing the dollars forward. That way, inflation is not going to increase, right? And also, if they buy it from the reverse repo, all this money, they bring it back, they possibly may not have that much bonds. So that's another concern that could have. So the forwards have gone up. And interestingly, it becomes a trap. So when the forwards go up, what happens? The exporters get very lucrative levels. They start selling the dollars. The speculators go and sell in the NDF markets because now they are getting 5.5% premium. Plus they are getting a rate of 73.5. So they are saying nothing doing, carry is very good. Start selling the dollar, earn the premium. So automatically the rupee then starts getting further strong. And that's exactly what had been happening before RBI intervened, and then again the spot moved up. So what happened was, if you look at the forward premium, the last 3-4 years, the forward premium broadly has been at the low 3.5% and on the higher 5.5%. Now, this is the band which is happening in the forward premium. That exporters who have been booking on a regular basis, they should understand this. But now the point I want to stress here is that while booking the US dollar for exports or for imports, taking a track on the forward premiums is very important. Why? Because at a spot of around 73.5, when the forward premium was at around 5.5%, you were getting very good levels. But at the same time, when the spot came to around 72.50, 72.60, and the premiums also crashed, you took a hit on the spot also, and you took a hit on the premium also. So you need to understand the jugglery, what is happening in the forward market. And sometimes there are opportunities. For example, when the money markets were around 3%, 3.5%, the forward premiums were around 5.40, a lot of exporters were delaying their export receipts. Why? They were borrowing locally and earning the forward premium. So there was an arbitrage. So that is one of the opportunities that exporters can take, provided they don't have cash deficit over here. What are the major factors which are driving the USD INR? All of you are in this business, you understand. Please list out some. What are your factors which is impacting the US dollar? There are various factors. These are the factors that we had listed after 16 years of research. And all these factors, we did a backtesting in a quant model. And then we put weights, that what works, which is most important, which is least important, which is moderate. Interestingly, I forgot to tell you about one very important factor, is that your astrologer. Recently one of my clients, they called one of our advisors and said, my astrologer is telling me that rupee is going to go to 75. And mind it, he told that at 72.40. And he was right. So that is a very important factor which we cannot ignore. So sometimes that also works. So jokes apart, these are some of the factors which impact the dollar rupee. But lately what we have done is that these all factors have been put together and a model has been created so that there is no advisors, whims and fancies which comes into play. Of course, nobody can 100% predict, but we are trying to make it as much quantitative as possible. So the current model, which is of intraday 3 months and 3 to 6 months, looks something like this. So we are seeing some pressure in the US dollar currently. Some of the factors which are working right now is some of these 5 factors which we have been tracking and it really works. And some of these factors you would have never even observed. And this could be one more interesting takeaway for this time. So question people ask is that why the dollar has been so stable? Have you felt that the rupee has been relatively stable as compared to 2008, 2013? What do you people feel? Just say yes, yes, yes if you feel that it's been more stable as compared to the past. Dhiral, Premal, everybody feels it's kind of stable. Any thoughts why it's so stable? Why? Why is it so stable? Darshan, I'll call the client and ask what the astrologer is saying. Modi ji, RBI protecting it, intervention. Okay, this time nobody got it right. Let me show you something. If you actually look, the 3-month volatility in the rupee, which you can measure with help of option premiums, the vols in the rupee has been continuously declining. In 2008-9, you saw the volatility 15-20%. In taper tantrum, it went all the way from 50 to 65 and all these levels. And then it was criminal because we had current account deficit, then we had limited foreign exchange reserves. But now, since our reserve cover to our external debt is close to around $560 billion, have improved a lot. $605 billion, latest number which has come today. The world is looking to us as different. They know that if rupee depreciates, RBI can come sell 20, 30, 40, $50 billion in no time. So we are not going to see that kind of depreciation that we saw earlier. And even if it's C, then RBI has so much of ammunition to come and sell. And this is a very important takeaway, because that's a fear that runs in everybody's mind. What if rupee becomes 80, 90, 100? So the volatility has reduced in the dollar rupee. Plus, because your overall external debt, reserve to external debt ratio has improved, your rupee is getting less and less volatile. Look at what happened in COVID. I mean, rupee hardly went from 72 to 76, 76.5. The RBI and the government is working hand in hand. They are announcing Atmanirbhar, they are announcing PLI schemes, etc., etc. The RBI is also saying, nothing doing, we're not letting rupee appreciate a lot, because at one end, we don't want cheaper imports coming from China. We are running close to around 60 odd billion trade deficit from China. We don't want that kind of imports getting dumped. In fact, they have been weakening the rupee vis-a-vis Chinese yuan, if you have noticed. So the point I want to make here is that they are not allowing dumping from China. They are trying to keep the CNH-INR pair at the base of 11. So they are trying to keep rupee slightly weak vis-a-vis China. And also on the real effective exchange rate, they are trying to maintain 120, 121 on the high and 115 on the low. So you know that whenever you get close to 120, 121, that is a time when the RBI will be very, very active in buying the US dollar, whether in the spot market or in the buying in the spot and pushing it in the forward market. Now, somebody who understands quants fine, doesn't understand quant very, very good, no problem at all. This is simply a bell curve, which tells us that over here, if you see from 2005 to 2021, we have seen the volatility from 2.8 to all the way 30%. Now this in 2005 to 10, we were seeing these observations over here. If you are seeing, the observations are narrowing down. That means now the volatility is coming closer to around 5% to 10%. Now in 2015, in this new RBI regime, we are seeing it coming close to around 5% to around 8% like that. So the volatility is coming down, and that's a very important point. And now people were only afraid that rupee would depreciate, and the volatility will be more on the depreciation side because that's our memory muscle. But now what we are seeing in the observations is it can also happen on the strong side. Last month itself, we saw 4.5%, 5% of appreciation. So we should be prepared for volatility, not very huge, but on both sides. And that's basically because of higher foreign exchange reserves and our improved of our debt to foreign exchange reserve ratios. So the volatility is coming down. Clearly, we are seeing in the rupee. So good news for all of us. Another way by which you can measure volatility is you can, look at the return is to risk matrix. Now, what is the return into risk matrix? When you have a forward premium, which is at 5%, 5.5% and all that, that's known as a 3-month, that's known as a carry. Now, the volatility is nothing but a risk. If you calculate carry by the risk, and then you see a number which is 0.8 plus, you typically see the rupee depreciating a little bit. Why? Because people get greedy. So whenever they get more carry, everybody comes and sells dollars. And suddenly when the ratio becomes such that the carry keeps increasing a little bit, more and more people come into the system, and then suddenly there is a reversal. So time and again, we have seen the carry versus a risk situation. Whenever it has gone above 0.8, 0.91, there has been a depreciation. This time also when the rupee was around 72, this ratio had turned, and then the rupee started weakening again. So next time when you talk to our advisors, You can talk to them about these 3-4 points and then ask them that what is your system telling, what is your quant model telling. And even if sometimes if there is a biasness by any party, you can take an important decision yourself that where is the trend of the rupee. Even the correlation with the broad dollar has taken for a toss. The broad dollar correlation we have seen in 11-15 was 0.68 with Asian currencies with developed 0.42 with broader dollar 0.52. Now this has also been coming down. Why? Because we are no longer the fragile five. We are no longer a country which was having $100 billion of reserves. We are no longer a country which is just dependent on FI flow. Okay. In fact, we were seeing a number out of 17 years, 14 years we have got net inflows. So why do we have to worry? $605 billion today, foreign exchange reserves. Should we be happy about it or should we not be happy about it? What do you feel? Just write in the chat box. Just yes, yes, yes in case you are happy. No, no, no in case you are sad. See, first of all, when you are seeing the US dollar weakening, when you are seeing there's a structural trend which could possibly happen, the dollar could weaken. And so much of our money is in the US dollar. Number two, what are we doing about it? We are putting it back to the US Treasury where we are getting what? 10 year, if you are putting the money, we are getting what? 1.5% yield. And to actually absorb these dollars, we have put rupee liquidity in the system and then pay interest on that. And then every year, keep the rupee 2-3% weak so that RBI can earn something out of it. Or 4-5% weak. They can give some dividend from the government. So the point I want to make here is at one point of time, we should all realize that whether it really makes sense and how much does it make sense. Right now, I think we have 14 months of import cover. Yesterday, we were reading that now even RBI, like other sovereign funds, are discussing about how do we use these foreign exchange reserves. Even he is getting concerned about the low interest rate environment. कि भाई US में जाके कुछ पैसा नहीं मिलता है, तो कुछ ना कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा इस currency इस exchange के साथ. So let's see. It's a big discussion, but going forward, let's see what RBI stance is going to be. But one thing is for sure, they are building up reserves. Maybe they are moving towards the capital account convertibility. Maybe they are looking at a bond inclusion, and that's the reason they want the rupee to be more stable and more ammunition in the hand. So everybody's been waiting. अरे भाई करना क्या है? ये सब तो ज्ञान की बात है. भाई हर कंपनी का अलग एक्सपोजर है. Every company is different. There is no one strategy for all. But one thing I can tell you, broadly for an exporter, earning carry, selling dollars, maintaining a hedge ratio year on year have always worked well. You can get, so our clients typically have been getting 1.5-2% extra carry whenever they are covering on a daily basis. And you can run a model and we can show you for 3, 4, 5 years number. Whenever the rupee is down, don't cover forward. You can typically go in for a put option. And for a short term, you can go for a range forward. For importers, Seagulls have worked. In a situation where the rupee volatility has come down, Seagulls can work. Whenever the option premiums are down, you can get into options. Whenever the spot is down and the premiums are down, you can go for longer term covers, maybe 3 months, 4 months, provided you have a policy according to it. For long-term ECB loans, well, interestingly, the forward curve is flat. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year. We are not seeing the forward curve as escalating like it was earlier. Whenever the forward curve is flat, take that opportunity. You want to do a call spread, you want to do a Seagull structure, you want to reduce cost. What levels you want to lock? Again, it depends on your company, your policy, your costing. Broad range, this is the range. But as I said, nobody has a magic wand. The model says that this is possibly a range. RBI should not like it to go below 71, 72 levels. On the higher side, 75, 76 levels. But year on, because net, we always want to protect our exports. 2, 3, 4% of depreciation is warranted. It can happen. So that should be kept in mind. And over the last 10, 15, 20 years, we have seen. So let's not bet against the dollar. Go there. Of course, things like Euro bond index, inclusion. These are certain situations where the US dollar can hit range which the rupee can get suddenly strong. So you get 30, 40 billion. You have to be careful about that. And also on the CNY, if the CNY appreciates a lot, then possibly. Yeah, hello, can you hear me? Okay, so you need to keep in account of all these points whenever you are taking a view on the dollar rupee. Lastly, market is a different beast. I have spent 20 years doing this, and I can tell you this, that no matter the best of analysis, markets will always surprise. Nobody knows what's happening in the US and what's happening in India with the 100% accuracy. Follow your risk management policy. And if you don't have one, please make one, but maintain a policy. And also, we are not ending over here. Now, a very, very interesting point, which is going to come right now, which Mohit, my dear friend, and we work with Mohit with a lot of our companies to manage their treasury money. What are the options for a corporate to actually invest, so that the risk is minimal and they can increase the yield? Because the bosses don't want to take risk, right? Unnecessary risk. So over to you, Mohit. Please tell them where to invest their money. All the HNIs and family offices want to know that. And also the corporates want to know it because they have huge number of money lying in the bank accounts and in fixed deposits. So over to you, Mohit.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abhishek. And thank you everyone for being a part of this very interesting session. Abhishek, let me be very honest and candid about it. I've heard a lot of people speaking about Forex and currencies and everything, but I've never seen that kind of clarity which you brought about in the subject. It was so clear step by step. It's quite refreshing to hear you. Good evening, everyone. What we'll do is, though Abhishek has given you a very good overview of the global climate, of the overall macroeconomic situation, globally, US markets, everything. What I will try and do is, though I will try and encapsulate very quickly, maybe the way I'll try and spend our time today evening is that I'll try quickly encapsulate the major macroeconomic points and the macroeconomic points in the Indian context, what is happening in the economy, and then we'll come to the treasury market. All of you belong to a large corporate or a large family or individually investing, right? So what are those options available in the debt market, and where can one put his or her own hard-earned money is something we'll try and decipher during the course of this section. I'll quickly launch into this without wasting much of time. Abhishek has spent a lot of time on this, but I just want to, before starting, I just want to present one graph and maybe ask everyone, can someone take a wild guess what this graph is all about? What is this ballooning line indicating out there? If you can just put in your responses, maybe in the chat box. Anyone want to take a guess? What is this all about? A quick guess, and then maybe we can move forward. Okay. All right. So this is nothing but this is US national debt, right? So it's gone up above $23 trillion last 10 years, last decade, or last 20 years per se has seen a huge amount of ballooning in the US national debt. The implications of which Abhishek has already spoken about, how central bank balance sheets have expanded, and primarily because of COVID-19 relief packages, each country has announced to the best of their ability and intent. US per se has expanded its balance sheet by almost 76% just because of COVID, which is YTD since 2020, which is a massive number, honestly. And if you see the impact on the interest rates, which has happened by virtue of expanding its balance sheet relentlessly, the US 10-year treasuries have been falling for last 1.5 years. Last year, March, it was at a historic low of sub 0.5, and now it's back to 1.5. These are very good indicators for any bond market, treasury market trader, even equity market traders to keep a track of. The moment you see the US 10-year crossing above 2, that's actually an indicator, reaching just near 2, that actually an indicator that money will start flowing back to US treasuries, and perhaps it's a time to take a pause on the equity markets. Just an indicative range, but just keep a tab on it. Already spoken about it, how real interest rates have gone negative across countries in the world. India today, it's trading almost like 1.5 to 2% negative, basically. And the Indian 10-year bond has been tracking the US 10-year bond. It's actually flowing in tandem. You see the two graphs, the red line and the blue line, they've been moving all along. And now you see a sudden spike. So the rates have not been hiked, but the yield curve is actually inching up, which is the crux of entire thing, right? We all know about how the rates have fallen. Last 1 year though, the rates have almost been static. The lower end of the spectrum, which is like 0 days, 7 days to a 1 year kind of rate, actually have come off. But the 10-year, 5-year rates have remained more or less in the same range for last 1 year. Coming out to Indian economy, what have we been seeing in the Indian economy of late? So India ki economy mein, you see some green shoots happening. You see the GST, the average collections were almost like 94,000 crores to 95,000 crores. It's inched up to over 1,20,000 odd crores, somewhere in that range. So GST collections have been good. Inflation indicators have been inching up, which shows that the activity is back in the economy. The manufacturing PMI, the services PMI, everything has been inching up. Obviously, your crude prices have gone up, basically, and equity indices have been doing well. So macro indicators in India look healthy. Your trade deficit is back to those original levels. In fact, and your export and import, both the numbers have come up. Last year it shrunk dramatically. Both the numbers have come up again. Fiscal deficit is a big concern now. Because of all these measures, the Indian deficit has been ballooning out of proportions. By all means, will run almost like a 13% deficit, center and states combined put together last year, which is a massive number, which will obviously mean that governments will have to borrow a lot of money. And when they borrow a lot of money, the yields will have to go up. When governments buy from the market, they will buy and the yields will typically rise, right? Though in spite of all these things, the India's overall position, which is debt as a percentage of GDP, is in an okay range. I will not say it's in the green zone. It's not even in the red zone, because you see larger economies like US and UK, they run a huge proportion, almost like 100% of their GDP is government debt is almost like 100% of their GDP. In India, that number is still low to 68%, but it's a relatively high number, right? So all these things we have spoken about. The inflation is inching up and the growth triggers. If you see this graph very closely, this is an interesting chart which shows how quarter-on-quarter growth has got impacted because of COVID globally, and how those countries have started picking up. So there are some countries which have started coming in the green, especially China, Ireland, Hong Kong, right? They've been able to contain COVID, and some countries have again got impacted, like India, hugely. So we will know the impact of that maybe perhaps at the end of this quarter. But green shoots were visible in Q4 2020 and especially Q1 2021. Q2 is anyone's guess. There was not a complete lockdown, but still the economic activity has slowed down again, right? Now we come to monetary policy. What are the tools in the hands of RBI? What have they been doing? And how will that impact our treasury calls per se? Look, so all said and done, liquidity is flush in the system. Everywhere you see, there is enough and more liquidity out there, basically. And the banking system is totally flooded with lot of money completely. Forex reserves, Abhishek has already labored upon this point. RBI has been absorbing foreign flows. Almost $100 billion was absorbed by RBI. They've stopped it, the intervention, but still RBI has been intervening and a lot in the Forex markets also. Now, the whole thing is when it comes to interest rates, the first thing which anyone will ask is, should we worry about inflation? Is it a real cause? Will RBI increase rates because the inflation has been inching up? Now, the simple answer is you break down inflation and you see what is actually happening in inflation across the different constituents of inflation. So if you break it down and you see the weightage of CPI inflation, the biggest weightage comes to food and beverages and obviously some other items. So food and beverages inflation is only inched up by 2.7%. So there is no cause of concern out there. April number was particularly high because of the oil price increase, right? And the May numbers again should be should have moderated back, right? So though the overall inflation headline number looks a little higher, but it is well within the tolerance limit of RBI because the core constituents of inflation have still not inched up. The ballooning impact was more so because of fuel and few particular items like pan, tobacco, and intoxicants, which went up. So there is not a cause of concern on the overall inflation part. So what is RBI doing now? Obviously, the first thing is because of the second wave of COVID, आरबीआई ने अपना जो ग्रोथ फोरकास्ट था या जो भी जीडीपी एक्सपेक्टेशन फोरकास्ट था, इट्स ऑलरेडी मार्क्ड इट डाउन एंड दे हैव made a euphoric statement saying that as long as necessary to revive and sustain growth, they will keep an accommodative stance, which means that they are not at all looking to raise rates, or they are not in a hurry or rush to raise the interest rates back, which is a very, very significant statement. So what can RBI actually do? RBI has not been touching the rates for last 1 year now. The last rate reduction or the lowest point of the rates, which came the 4 repo and 3.35 reverse repo, was on 22nd of May 2020. एक साल हो गया है, exactly 1 year now, above 1 year, in fact 13 months now, the rates have not been touched. They have just remained there, but RBI has played around with a whole lot of measures to pump in liquidity in the system, to infuse more liquidity, to buy more bonds, and we will perhaps just have a quick look at it, the way RBI has dealt into the market. RBI has done OMOs, secondary market purchases, state purchases. It's going GSAPs with this unlimited acquisition plan, which RBI has started, Operation Twist, LTROs, everything, every possible innovative tool under the armory of RBI has been used very, very smartly for last 1 year without touching the rates, right? Why is RBI doing this? To keep the yields lower. There's been a tussle within RBI and the bond markets. The bond markets have been indicating, because of inflations and other factors, that the yield should go up. The moment the yields inch up, RBI intervenes in the market, does some kind of an operation and gets the yield lowered. So the yield of 10-year has been hovering around 6% for last 1 year, right? Give or take, went down to 5.8, give or take, went up to 6.2, but it's been around there. So what is the path which RBI will take to normalize the economy? The likely path, okay, this is just a likely path. This is what we think can likely happen. They will first suck out this excess liquidity. There's a lot of liquidity in the system. Then they will narrow the corridor between the repo and the reverse repo rate, which is currently at 65 bips. They should lower it down to 25 bips. And then they will start normalizing rates, which should happen maybe at the end of this fiscal year and somewhere at the start of next calendar year is what is the most likely scenario for RBI to start increasing rates again. One risk, however, which we need to highlight is the commodity prices and global interest rates. If the US 10 years, the 2-year yields in US continue to rise, RBI will have to take action sooner than later. And if the crude basket continues to rise, again, it could create unnecessary pressure on the RBI to raise rates early. Other than these two factors, it looks likely that RBI will perhaps get into rate hike cycle, maybe somewhere down the end of this year, right? So that's just a global macro scenario. Now, how do we tackle this scenario? How do we, as investors, as HNI investors into debt market, into treasury instruments, our company monies which are lying in your companies, the treasury money, how do you make the most of it? Obviously, the FD rates have crashed, right? If you go for a 1-year FD today, the best rate possible will be around 4.5, at best 5 if you go for a second or the third tier bank, right? And there's nothing more available out there. But if you want to really park your money for 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, what are the options available? Zilch, basically, right? The options available for a 1 month parking will not even fetch you 2% kind of a rate, an FD I'm talking about. So how do you play this cycle? Especially you can't buy long dated instruments when the rate cycle is likely to harden, because that will mean that you will take mark to market impact on your portfolio. So the first theme which you need to play is you have to be very, very aware that the rate cycle will harden. Irrespective when RBI raises the rates, the yield curve has started moving up gradually and slowly. So all you can do is you have to buy short tenor papers which are not impacted by rates so much, or you buy floating rate papers, floating rate instruments, which will keep getting repriced. As rates move up, you buy the newer paper, which is getting priced at a higher and higher coupon. So that's one theme which someone needs to play. Second part of it is you stick to the short end of the curve. What does that mean? Don't go into instruments which have a very large maturity, very long dated maturity, long dated modified duration, which is one keyword when you invest, you will find in all the instruments that what is the modified duration of your fund or the paper. वो ज्यादा लंबा ना हो, मेच्योरिटी बहुत बड़ा ना हो. जितना ज्यादा मेच्योरिटी होगा किसी इंस्ट्रूमेंट का, उतना ही वो इंटरेस्ट रेट सेंसिटिव हो जाता है. If the interest rates go up, your prices will crash and keep coming down. So the idea here is to keep at the short end of the curve, keep into money market instruments at the short end of the curve, which will pay you higher and higher returns and will keep getting repriced also in every 3 month, 6 month cycle, right? अगर आप एक 3 से 6 महीने के पेपर में रहते हैं अभी, तो interest rate impact is not very large. That cycle is also getting repriced. As you see the yield curve moving parallel shifts at a higher level, you will keep capturing those higher levels on the yield curve. The third strategy, if you have something of extra surplus money, you have time at your hand, you don't want to park for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, but you want to park for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year kind of durations, तो आप क्या करेंगे debt में, right? Then the options have to be a little wider and the interest rate expectations are wider. However, my humble submission to everyone is tame down your interest rate expectations, because globally that is happening. Globally, most of the debt today, the world's largest debt is in negative territory, negative yielding interest rates. US treasuries have been negative. As Abhishek rightly pointed out, real interest rates have been negative across all countries. So in that kind of a scenario, when inflation is also lower, you can't expect the interest rates to be high, basically. So your expectation has to tame down, but there are still ways to play it around. What do we mean by roll down strategy? Very simply explained, it means that you buy an FMP kind of a paper. FMPs are closed-ended, which is a fixed maturity plan. Roll-down strategies are open-ended. आप enter or exit कर सकते हैं कभी भी अपने हिसाब से. And the good part is, because once you buy that paper, if it can be a 2-year, 3-year paper, it will give you that quoted yield if you stay put for the entire tenor of the paper. So that's the best way to play these kind of markets with a longer duration kind of a thing. And the last theme, which I want to touch upon very quickly, is that you look for alternate options, right? It's not always necessary to be in a bank deposit or a mutual fund product. Mutual funds obviously will give you good returns with a 3 to 6 month kind of a tenor, better than FDs in all scenarios today, if you play those themes rightly. But you can also look for some alternates. You can look for some interesting bonds. You can look for some corporate deposits or commercial papers, or you can do intercorporate deposits. There are structured finance options which are available, and then there are customized solutions. It will all depend कि आपका treasury किस stage पर है. Right, so deposits can give you anywhere up to 5.5. These are all AAA deposits which I have highlighted. If you go down the chain to AA kind of papers, CRISIL AA I'm talking of, the rates can actually go up to around 6 also. Depends what kind of credit exposure you want to take, basically. Then there are bonds, and all kinds of bonds are available. Bonds is not necessarily always a risky or a tier 2 or a perpetual paper. Bonds can be tier 1 secured papers also. I've just given some indicative examples, and the range of return can be 6 and can go as high as 11, depending कि आप किस nature का paper और किस quality का credit you want to take. So these are very interesting options which can form a part of your overall treasury to enhance the overall yield. The problem today in the treasury world is that how do you enhance the overall yield when your bank FDs are giving only 2%, 3%, at best 5% with a year kind of a lock-in. So you have to create a mix of all these products and place these products on a ladder depending on your time tenor, depending on the stage of your treasury. आपका treasury कौन से stage पर है, आपकी company कौन से stage पर है, आपका personal investment कौन से stage पर है, right? So if your treasury money is only कि Friday को मेरे पास में surplus रहता है और Tuesday को मुझे वापस लगता है, so how can I make sure कि for these 4 days I can make extra return? You can, right? The best way to do it is park that Friday money into an overnight fund, withdraw it on Monday, you will have the money on Tuesday. Even if it is a very small amount, don't waste your money lying out there in current account. You can't make anything on it. At least in overnight, you will make 3%. You do that for 52 weeks of a year, you will have a sufficient amount of surplus on your working capital, which is unnecessarily parked in the current account. That's one for treasury money, which is very fast moving. And the predictability of cash requirement is uncertain. आपको पता नहीं है कब पैसा लग जाए, right? So those kind of scenarios, it is okay to be in overnight and liquid funds. If you have a slightly larger treasury, जहां पर you know कि मेरे को monthly इतना requirement है, I will need out of 100 rupees in my treasury portfolio, I will need 20 rupees every month for next 5 months, and I have a predictability out there. Then you have to stagger between the next bucket, which is few months to 1 year kind of a bucket, where you can choose between an ultra short, low duration or a money market fund. again, the credit quality becomes of paramount importance out there, and you will have to really go to a qualified advisor out there to figure out what is the right credit quality and the right mix of yields. But there are options available which can fetch you anywhere from 4.5 to 6% kind of a return, or 5.5% kind of a return in that kind of time tenor, right? The moment you have a matured treasury, which means you have surplus funds, you can park it very well for 1 year to 3 year kind of a tenor. You don't need it for immediate requirements. There is some portion which is available with you where you want to enhance your returns. That is where you start looking for slightly more matured options, which is you go in for corporate deposits, you lock in some portion of your funds, you go in for floating rate funds, floating rate instruments, roll down strategies, and maybe perhaps to enhance the overall yield, top it up with a cherry, and that cherry will be bonds, right? So you'll make the entire cake. To top it up, to enhance the overall yield, go with some bonds where you are comfortable with the credit and you know that the issuer is of good pedigree, right? And if you are a very large corporate individual investor where you don't need the funds, you know you have surplus liquidity, cash surpluses running for years and years put together, that is when we go in and customize specific solutions and tailor make it to your requirements. Maybe move into some venture debt kind of products or some structured financial obligations which we can try and create for you, basically to enhance the overall yield. So that's how you have to look at your treasury, you have to look at your requirements, you have to look at your time tenor, you have to look at the array of products which are available and do a mix and match to create a best fabric for your overall treasury or even individual requirements, right? Whatever I'm talking, though it looks like I'm talking for treasury, it also works equally well for individuals and their personal capital, which has to be allocated to safer instruments, right? How do we come into picture? We just try and navigate these volatile markets, the scenarios, which could be budgets, which could be COVID waves, which could be global inflations and rates, and all these instruments. It looks very simple when you look at this ladder, but you have to constantly keep monitoring the credit. You should be aware of events like Franklin's or DHFLs and ILFS of the world or Vodafones of the world. And you have to keep checking the paper quality and keep eliminating papers which could be dubious exposures. And there is constant rebalancing and structuring according to the interest rate cycle, which is required. So that is where perhaps things come into play. Follow this framework. Keep reviewing, optimize your yields, keep going, keep doing it for an ongoing basis, and that's where you make the best kind of a treasury. So that's it from my side. Abhishek, any questions from anyone? I'm more than happy to take, but I thought I'll just give a quick overview of how can one effectively utilize funds in the debt world today.
That was a lovely presentation, Mohit. And so simply you explained about the economy, what's happening in India, what's happening in the world, and especially the interest rate environment, because every single corporate today, Mohit, is concerned about the interest rates, whether it's with regards to their borrowings, short-term, medium-term, long-term, or whether it be dollar interest rates or whether it be the investment money. Because I have seen companies parking 100 crores in plain FD.
Yeah,
not even
absolutely.
Looking at products where they can get the same zero risk, almost zero risk. They're getting 0.5% to 1% higher. So I think that's a great opportunity. And some of the large corporate treasuries you would have joined must be using it also. And people who are not using it possibly should make use of products which are available in the market. With this, I'll open it for questions. You can keep putting questions on the chat box, and we'll have a 10 minutes question answer round. Let's make full use. So Darshan, the answer to question is that smaller companies should understand that there's a 5%, 4% forward premium. They should get used to the booking strategy by selling dollars. It's a privilege for an exporter to get lower interest rates in this country and also get higher forward premium. And cumulatively, you can earn 2, 3, 4% extra depending on the business. And even if you're not doing it, then you should do it on a continuous basis. And I can tell you, out of my experience, you can get 1.5%, 2% extra carry in your overall top line. Tejas, I wish I knew what's going to happen in the dollar rupee in the next 3 months. But broadly, as we said, we don't expect the market to go below 72. On the higher side, in next 3 months, around 74. But that should be the broad view. But then I think more than the view, what needs to be taken into account is the strategy. What are you doing and what premiums are you doing? And what frequency are you doing and what is your policy behind it?
I
So
see one
question is,
question on
yeah,
should HNIs invest in markets like in US or something, right?
yeah, please.
Okay, so it's always good to have a global exposure. Always advisable that you have some portion of your funds dedicated to international exposure. It could be 5% to 10%, depending on your overall position, right? Now, whether you should invest directly in US markets through LRS route or you should invest sitting in India in INR is something which you will have to clearly monitor. If there is an end usage of funds in any overseas country, be it US or any other global country, if you see your children going abroad, settling abroad, studying abroad, you traveling abroad for or staying there for some largest period of time, you should definitely choose the LRS route, send your money abroad and then invest out there directly. But if those are not the purposes, then you should start investing abroad, sitting here in India through mutual fund routes, through other fund of fund options, or there are many other options to go international. So you should do that in INR itself, right? So that's a conscious call which you'll have to take. Maybe you'll have to analyze the situation and then take it, but always advisable to have 5 to 10% of your portfolio dedicated to international theme.
Yeah. So somebody's asked that whether RBI purposely keeps the rupee weaker or INR underperforms just because RBI tries to keep USD INR stable, while the whole USD Asia is trending lower. So yes, we have seen that the continuous dollar purchases by the RBI is an initiative. So yes, we have seen that RBI has been buying the dollars in the spot market and doing a sell-buy swap to push it forward, and that's their initiative to keep the rupee slightly weak. Because as I said, that broadly they are going hand in hand with the government initiative of PLI and Atmanirbhar, and also they don't want cheap imports from China getting dumped into India, and they want to reduce the trade deficit with China. That's the reason why they want to keep the rupee weaker. At the same time, another point of thought is that they're having $605 billion worth of money lying in their chest. Obviously, they would like the dollar to be slightly stronger and they can earn some extra 2-3% every year and pass some of them as a dividend to the government. So I personally feel that we will not see sustained phase of rupee appreciation. We will see slight depreciation of the rupee, but yes, because of the war chest that we have, we are not going to see bombastic rupee depreciation that we used to see in 2013, 2008. So euro right now, interestingly, because I was showing the real rates, negative rates in the US, which is higher than the US, and you could see the graph where the real rates were typically negative in case of US, and the world is shunning the US dollar, buying the euros, and also lately they have also said that they are not going to reduce the asset purchases. But broadly, I think we are currently in a weak dollar environment. So euro is a buy on dips, and we don't feel that euro is going to get very, very strong right now. It's going to, I mean, euro is going to remain strong right now, and dollar is likely to remain weak. So euro is a buy on dip strategy, and that's typically what you can see from the swap rates of euro dollar. You will get a similar idea that how it has crashed. Yes, Anand, we will send you a recorded version and you can find it on YouTube also. And happy to help. And in case you guys can take any takeaway from this presentation that Mohit and myself, and the entire team at IFA and Moneyfront has worked together, it will be a tremendous happiness for all of us that if you guys can take some things and make use of that in your treasuries. I mean, that's really our objective over here. So Brijesh, you can just give us a call on this on offshore offices and probably a cumulative exposure of all your currencies and subsidiaries on parent, how we can pull it across and then do the hedging strategy. Probably we can discuss on that. Any questions on investments or the ladder up approach of how do you manage cash flows while investing 3 months, 6 months, 12 months?
I see one question from Vishal Shah on how do you feel comfortable? Sorry, the question has gone up. I'm just trying to catch the question. Sorry, I'm just trying and locating the question. Has gone up.
Vishal, can you write the question again?
A plus debt papers you feel comfortable for investment horizon of 3 to 4 months? Okay, look, so it's very difficult often to recall a paper which is AA plus kind of an individual paper, जो कि इस rating का हो. I will have to perhaps go back, check out some papers and come back to you with an answer. But अगर आपका horizon 3 to 4 months है, I would still recommend that you be in an ultra short-term fund or a money market fund, basically. Where the mod duration of the fund should not be greater than around 120 odd days. And वहाँ पर आप paper quality देखकर थोड़ा सा, if you want, you can find papers where there is around 10 to 12%, 10 to 15% AA exposure to enhance the yield in these funds also. Though typically we try and limit ourselves to complete AAA exposures when we go for these funds. Because you are comfortable and it's only 3 to 4 months, you can look at those fund options, and I can separately send you some names out there. Basically, and I think right now that will be the best option available.
The questions and
some question on gold. I think how much exposure in gold is advisable? What are the trends for gold rates? Abhishek, you want to take
yes, that? So gold, high inflation, hyperinflation situation, gold is a great asset. And right now you have sovereign gold available. They give you 2.5% interest. What else do you want in life? So I think gold should definitely be a part of your portfolio, and Mohit can tell more about it. But 10-15%, it's part of my portfolio. And I think if you actually take a CAGR of the gold returns over the last 30-40 years, you will see similar numbers of an equity market, right, Mohit? Of gold and equity.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, so just to give a quick answer on that one, I honestly feel 10% of the portfolio, not less than 5% honestly, but 10% of the portfolio should be in gold. It's a great hedge. And currently we are very bullish on this cycle. To an Indian investor, gold is especially important because look, gold is measured in USD. अभिषेक ने वैसे भी बताया USD के अगेंस्ट में INR 3.5-4% से डेप्रिशिएट हो रहा है लास्ट 20 साल से. So that you can be rest assured कि वो USD के अगेंस्ट में डेप्रिशिएशन के कारण आपका प्राइस बढ़ता रहेगा उतने से. That's one part of it. Second is Indian inflation. You will keep hitting an inflation of around 4 to 6% के band में, and gold is a hedge against inflation. It will over a long period of time keep moving as per inflation. So you add 3.5% to 4% currency depreciation, 4% inflation, 8.5%, 2.5% RBI is just giving you out of its own war chest just to hold gold on the SGBs. It's a great investment right now if you ask for an Indian investor, right? And if you catch the cycle right, you're in for a good treat on that. Irrespective, even if you don't catch the cycle right, you should have 5 to 10% of your allocation in gold always.
Excellent. So great, my dear friends. Thank you so much for being here. And once again, I would say that all of you people have taken out time on this lovely Friday evening. There is rains in Bombay, and hopefully, I'm sure we would have been able to give you some 3-4 takeaways, Mohit and myself, which you can implement in your treasury and your day-to-day managing on your foreign exchange at any point of time, irrespective of whether we are in business or not. If you have any problem or you seek any question, please write to us. And myself and my team will be happy to solve that queries. And we are privileged by Almighty that we are a medium, that we are able to give you that information. Mohit, talk from your side.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening and a very good weekend. For all those who are in Mumbai, the weather is fantastic. Please enjoy, make the most of it. And for anything which is related to FX or investments, do not hesitate to write to us or reach out to us. We're always a shout away. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Chalo. Bye.
Bye.